trauma can come in, I guess, many shapes, sizes, and even forms. And whilst you might not realize it, you even might even be, or at least have had, some kind of mini, even traumatic experience. So it's pretty crazy, right, when you actually think about it like that, but it is what it is. So trauma is a really ugly thing. A really ugly thing to the point where it can even affect an individual or a group of people for life, and potentially even generations, because like certain traditions or certain sort of characteristics might be sort of carried upon throughout generations, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. I guess like indoctrination and things like that could potentially result, or at least be resulted from trauma. So imagine like over generational periods of conditioning, and this is super scary, because who actually does deserve that? No one does, really and truly. Everyone deserves to live, pretty peaceful, happy lives, but there must be a reason for things to exist. And I think that one way we could potentially kind of combat this is through changing our perspective to what trauma is and the power it pretty much has to essentially pretty much change your life. Because if it can change your life for the worse, let's try and find a way to change it for the better. And again, take what I say with a grain of salt, because I'm just a dude on the internet. If you have any, trauma and you struggle to deal with it, seek some professional help, because there are some people that have got like PhDs and all this stuff, and they probably give better advice. However, you never know, random dude on the internet might actually help you out in some kind of scenario. So that's why we're here. And yeah, again, if you can't afford that, then maybe you can delve into it yourself. Remember, you create your own reality, and you basically create your own thoughts, sort of. And so I'd say we should probably start off by saying that we have to understand where it comes from, because it has to come from somewhere. Trauma. Maybe it was a certain event, maybe even... Actually, you know what? It's pretty crazy how we don't seem to realize, but even seeing like gory stuff on social media can affect your emotions in such a way that it influences the way that you think. And so imagine if you're watching some sort of like death scene or something that's pretty gnarly, in the sense of pretty gory too. Obviously it's going to sort of cause something to your heart and make you sort of feel a certain kind of way. So you could even get maybe potentially mini bouts of trauma even from that, which is pretty crazy. So again, be wary of what you're firstly engaging in and stuff like that, and what you're sort of surrounding your eyes with, and the sort of content and all that stuff, because it's pretty crazy. It's a pretty crazy world out there. And I think whilst it's very important to be informed by events and sort of bad things that happen in the world, it's really easy to think negatively of the world. And if we keep thinking like that, we're never going to really make the world a better place. Anywho, trauma. So it comes from somewhere. And again, potentially a certain event, maybe it could be just anything at all. Typically, I guess when you look at scenarios, it probably does come from specific events or events that you might have heard of. And if that's the case, then the event resides somewhere in the past, in the timeline where the past existed. Because currently, right now, it doesn't exist, because you're living right now, right here and right now. But we kind of let it affect us emotionally and mentally from the past, which again, I have to state again, does not technically exist right now. However, because we've kind of built everything upon the past, or at least from the past and past actions, it sort of is relevant. And then you have to kind of ask yourself, how do I solve the pains in the past to help my present and future self? Because they're going to kind of want you to, work on creating a better version of yourself, one that can actually be authentic and genuine when it comes to living your life. Because events can be toxic, but I think whilst they might hold some weight in terms of how important they might be in order to teach you certain lessons and certain levels of awareness, because a lot of times pain teaches us. We don't really realize that until in hindsight. That doesn't mean that, it's justifiable to some degree. but it shouldn't have any power over our current self or anything to do with our sort of future plans, because it can really, again, like I said, it can even affect you, like people on a generational level, which isn't right. And you have to kind of remember that if you're strong enough to live through it, or maybe your ancestors were strong enough to live through it, then you're more than likely to be strong enough to sort of heal from it too. Which means that you shouldn't give it power anytime you sort of get any flare-ups of the pains from the past. And that's why oftentimes you actually see a lot of people who make great things in the world, they typically have had some crazy experiences whilst either if they were a child or just in life, to the point where it makes them create something absolutely world-changing. And so it makes you think that, damn, why does all that sort of pain create such an individual who has so much prowess? It's mad. It's really is mad to think about. If you look at a lot of athletes, a lot of maybe potentially celebrities, and just different people that are sort of quite higher up in media and things like that, some of them had a lot of traumatic experiences, and it led to them to where they are today. Unfortunately, though, I don't think a lot has completely healed. And the reason I say that is because a lot of times when your motivation is due from trauma, it's not entirely authentic, which means that they use their sort of negative emotions, if you want to say negative. I personally don't think that any emotion is negative, because they teach us a lot about ourselves. But they use that, for example, if the trauma has led to you becoming more angry, they've used that as fuel to essentially maybe train harder, to become better at their craft. Or maybe they can't face themselves, so they sort of train as hard as they can within that. And that's probably why a lot of people feel empty, despite all the successes that they've achieved in their life. They haven't really dealt with their internal mind. If you have reached that stage where you've gotten so far because of the sort of certain emotions that maybe trauma has brought up into you, it's okay. It's okay to let go just a little bit, just to observe yourself, and just to kind of chill out a little bit. You can let go a little bit because life will always move on. And sometimes you have to allow the feelings of the past to kind of come up. As much as it is uncomfortable for you to deal with, it's better that you sort of at least look at it, or look at the situation from a very neutral standpoint, because only then will you be able to analyze the sort of trauma by itself and the situation by itself, and determine how much of that you really want to invoke certain emotions and things like that. Because once you do learn how to do that, again, like I said, there's a lot more authenticity into your life. You can find out exactly things like even purpose and things like that, like what you truly want to do rather than what your emotions are telling you. And you're a lot more level-headed, you're a lot more clear, and you can heal from it. You can if you do plan on having kids, you can essentially be better to them. Maybe you can be better to people around the world, even random people you might see on a daily basis if you go out. So it's really important to kind of work on it. I know a lot of people aren't going to work on it because it's hard. It's really hard to sort of dive into the darker side of history within your life. It's not exactly the most appealing thing to do or exercise to do, right? But it's kind of needed, and not only because it will help you find out things about yourself, but you will also level up in the sense of being stronger, more resilient, knowing that you have tackled a lot in your life, because you are much stronger than you think you are. Trust me and believe it. You might not realize it, but trust me, in hindsight, you will realize it. And you definitely can, even if you're going through something that's pretty crazy right now, right? When you kind of come out of it, you might have some, again, emotions that sort of carry on to the future. But it's really important to kind of deal with it now, sooner than later, because you don't want to deal with it at some point where it might come up and ruin a different kind of situation because of the feelings that you have. And if anything, it should make you kind of happy in a sense to kind of deal with some of these problems, mainly because it just means that you get to become a better you, a more happier you, a more self-accepting you, more self-confidence, again, all of that good stuff to do with the self, right? Once you truly understand it and then overcome it. And a lot of times these kind of things will be like mini tests for you to sort of deal with, in the sense of testing your character, testing how strong you are, because every challenge and setback that you have in life, you are more than capable of dealing with. So you definitely can do it. And there's obviously a bunch of... Is my dog on my bed? Oh my god, how am I gonna sleep? Anywho, try to change your perspective on trauma. Rather than running from it, I'm not gonna tell you just to be like, you know, all motivational and says, yeah, push for it, man, push for it, because it's gonna be a hard task for you to do. Again, like sort of getting used to uncomfortability. It's not something that the sort of human body desires. So we kind of have to use our minds in a smarter way. And so I would say that even having trauma and the ability to have that means that you're special. You're special because it's not really a regular sort of event to go through. And that's not glorifying it, by the way. Obviously, I know it's horrible, but again, if we try to change our perspective on it as something that is like an exercise, if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have to explore ourselves even further. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't be as special, and we wouldn't have as many sort of talents or sort of things that have kind of come up as a result of it. Because there is always something you can take out of life, regardless of the situation. And again, I want to say for my final messages on this video, it's okay. You're strong, and you can live a better life. To deal with it as best as you can, whether that means journaling, again, professional help, I'd definitely recommend that, or just spending more time with yourself, maybe some calming music, and just really figuring things out. Try to do it, because the sooner you do it, the sooner your life gets better. Peace and blessings to you all, and I'll see you in the next one.